I realize that we're running a bit behind. We're going to let people arrive. Wonderful, wonderful. And thank you so much for being here. So, as people sort of land and arrive, um, I am going to welcome everybody who's here. My name is Karen Sims, and I'm so happy to have you. And I am joined by this wonderful group of people who will be with me. Um, so Teddy Frank and Charlene Sanders and Ruby Mendenhall. And we have Leonard, who will be Samira Muhammad, who will be joining us in just a second. And while we're letting people arrive and get settled, I am going to just do a really brief welcoming, just so that we can all kind of get centered and arrive together. So let's all collectively take a deep breath. Yeah. And for those who are comfortable and who are settling in, I just want to welcome you. I know maybe I need a deep breath, so I'm going to have us take another deep breath. So, welcome to Rooted, a community conversation around resilience and well being and belonging and collective care. And I want to thank you all. We want to thank you so much for being with us for these few minutes. I know it's in the middle of the workday, and many of you have things on your calendar. I know some of you are joining us on AirMeet. Others of you are on our Facebook and on our Instagram feed. And again, really appreciate you taking time to be here. So, we are in a time where there is a lot of noise, where many of us have times on our calendars and on our hearts and on our souls that might feel like stress and weathering and adversity. And I thought it would be useful. And actually, Teddy was one of the people who helped inspire this time to just make a little bit of more space to listen to some wisdom about what is working and well, and how we might stay better resourced and grounded in times of complexity and chronic change and complexity and stress. So hopefully you'll leave with a bit of inspiration and a little bit of fortification. And I also hope that this will be a time of reflection and maybe a time of connection. And I'll tell you a little bit about how we've designed this time for us. And maybe I also want to say, I also hope that you'll learn maybe something new or offer into this collective feel a new story, a resource, something that you can share with us. I don't want this to be a one-way conversation. I know that there's always collective wisdom in the room. And so before I keep going, I will let Lyric come on and make sure that you know how to use all of the technology and tools on the platform. Because again, we don't want this to be just us talking to you. We do want opportunities for engagement. So I'm going to pause and say thank you all for being here.
Hello, and thank you all for joining us. My name is Lyric, and I just wanted to give a quick walkthrough of some of the features. So, this is a very interactive platform, so you can use the chat feature it should be off to your, of course, I have to do the classic off to your right side. On the chat, there's also a Q&A feature if you have any questions that you want to make sure that we get to. You can also, if you see a question you really like and you want to make sure we get to it, you can upvote that question to make sure it pops up for us. And I will also be checking the chat if you're having any technical difficulties or things that you could use some help with, and I'm here to help.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to be a little bit more informal for a second and say, uh, it is Lyric, is Samira here? Maybe our poet isn't here yet. So I will offer just a brief arrival. I want to share that I don't hope today is yet another webinar or training. I do hope that this continues to be an opportunity for us to pause and reconnect and, to stay connected during these times. So, without further ado, I am going to let Charmaine Sanders, who I met through our global social witnessing project efforts through the Pocket Project. I was so inspired. So I am one of those people who I do a lot of opportunities and have a chance to meet a number of different people. And when I heard her comments and reflection in her global social witnessing group, and then went to look at her bio, I was like, oh my gosh, this is someone that I want to know. And I want to introduce her to you because I believe that she's someone who I want you to know. And so I'm not going to do her bio for her because I do want her to tell us a little bit about her work with the Well-Being Project, to share a little bit about what inspires her and uplifts her, and anything else when you think about what helps you stay rooted and grounded. I'd love for you to share. And again, I know you were incredibly busy, and I am so honored that you decided to make some time for us. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much, Karen, for such a beautiful welcome and invitation. No, it is truly, I count it all joy to be here today and welcome everyone. I'll just briefly introduce myself and just really excited to get to know everyone else and also just the amazing people in this community. But my name is Charmaine Sanders, pronouns she and her. And I like to just start off by saying for any of the things that I do, who I am a creative soul who is a proud sister, daughter, friend, and entrepreneur. And I work for COAC Detroit by day. So for my 9 to 5 to support the well-being of nonprofit leaders, specifically based in Detroit, Michigan, and Southeast Michigan, where I'm from and currently reside. But I have had the wonderful privilege that I count as joy to be able to work with partners such as the Well-Being Project, who supports the well-being of different change makers with global wide. So even beyond Michigan, beyond the United States. So saying this to say, I've had the wonderful opportunity to be able to support and being able to share the importance of tending to our holistic well-being. I do this through my job, but I also do it through my business, Slower Pace and Breathe, where I intentionally called it that because of the importance of slowing down. Just as Karen mentioned, we live in a very fast paced, noisy, loud, busy world. So, giving ourselves the space to take part in certain self care practices or be around a community that reminds us to feel rooted and having the space to make sure that we're also pouring into ourselves is something that I definitely echo and hold closely. So through my work, I am a certified breathwork facilitator. So I really support with helping people to take a breath, inhale, and exhale, and being able to make sure that we can regulate our nervous system as we're doing meaningful work, whether you're showing up as mothers, fathers, caregivers, whatever the numerous hats that we all wear, making sure that you're taking the time to take care of yourself and remembering sometimes that can be as simple as just taking a deep breath, taking an intentional pause. So I wanted to just really share outside of the work that I do, why this theme to me is so powerful and just so timely. It's because we know the importance of being rooted is for me being able to connect ourselves to each other. And as Karen mentioned before, like in the beautiful ways that she promoted the program or this specific gathering, connecting to the practices that sustain us. So for me, that's looked like being able to connect by slowing down and listening to my body, being in areas where I'm able to be still, whether that's just kind of taking a walk, whether that's through prayer, whether it's through connecting to one another, like being able to be in communal spaces such as these, or even just being able to show up and call or text friends or just have a word with someone that I haven't connected with in a while and building that connection, being able to deepen those relationships, even the ones that we see daily, or even if there's space and we don't have the gift of being in proximity to them, knowing that we have technology that we can also use for our benefit. So intentionally carving out space to connect with those that have a special place in my heart and being able to make sure that we're having a mutual relationship where I'm pouring into them and they're pouring into me, but also connecting to these practices that help sustain us. So again, as I mentioned, through breath work, being able to catch our breath. And as Karen mentioned, being with the Pocket Project, global social witnessing, just being able to be honest with ourselves and what we feel within our bodies when we turn on the news or look on social media and see all of the different things that are happening. But making sure that we're giving ourselves the space to feel, to be, and to recognize we don't have to necessarily have everything look peaceful to be at peace. And that's again the beauty of being able to slow down, really reconnect with how you're feeling and how you're showing up and knowing that it's okay, but also being in the presence of amazing people just like this. So just want to say just a few of those things. And lastly, as I start to wrap up, the Well-Being Project, as I mentioned before, working with them, and I'm happy to share links in the chat and also maybe some information that can be sent in follow-up email. But they've done the wonderful work of making sure that they're digging deeper about what is the intersection between well-being and like social change, whether you're in the nonprofit sector, for profit, government, whatever that looks like, wherever you are, but in your sphere of influence and the ways that you're impacting the world or the community that you serve. How can we do this meaningful work while also not compromising our well being or our values and making sure that we're having this ripple effect, if you will, of tending to ourselves and tending to ourselves through self and community care. So, really excited that they've been doing incredible work, such as having global well-being summits and local regional summits across the world. In Detroit, we're going to be hosting one in October. So really excited about the opportunity. But regardless of where you are, knowing that the ripple effect, the information that will be shared will continue to be spread globally so that there's definitely some things and practices that we can learn from one another. So if any of this interests you, please definitely let me know. We'll be happy to have any side conversations or share any resources. But again, count it a joy to just be here today for us to get rooted in community and know that we don't always have to look within outside of ourselves to slow down. It can be as something as just taking a simple breath. So thank you, Karen, for this space today. It's beautiful to be here with all of you.
So thank you so much. How beautiful, how beautiful. And I know, let's take our collective breath. Thank you. Um, so I know, I can imagine that you're doing really, really amazing work. Uh, what is one thing that inspires you or keeps you motivated to continue to promote well-being in the face of adversity? You're in Michigan with a lot of complexity. What keeps you inspired?
I really appreciate that question because it makes me really dig a little deeper in the spirit of rootedness. And honestly, if I'm being transparent, it's my faith. I'm someone who recognizes like that I get the most rootedness in being double down in my faith and the word of God and being able to recognize. So even though the midst of the challenges that we go through, there's something bigger than this. And there's a whole entire way that I just shift my thinking of knowing that what I see now will not last forever, the struggles, the challenges, but also being able to kind of dig a little deeper where it just allows me to stretch my own belief. So having the grounded and rootedness of knowing that all is well and all will work well for our good, being able to be around other people that continue to sharpen my own faith or just allow me to stretch and have more belief in myself and the way that I'm showing up, but also remind me that even when the world can be a little overwhelming or can be disheartening, there's always something good that's happening. Whether it's in Michigan, whether it's all the way in California, though there's a lot of other things that can be clouding that goodness, still being able to stay rooted enough to know there's people that are continuing to show up for their communities. There are people that are continuing to spread the good news or just be giving a helping hand, whether it's through volunteerism or whether it's through just simply showing an act of kindness. It's those small moments of humanity that keeps me grounded, and it's my faith that keeps me going. So that's definitely where I find a lot of inspiration nowadays.
Ah, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And again, I know you're going to put your information in the chat. We'll also make sure that it's available on our social medias as a part of follow because I think people will be really inspired to continue to follow you and to continue to learn more about the well-being project and the conference over the summer. How amazing. So thank you, thank you. Be well. All right. So as we take another little collective pause, uh, I'm going to briefly, I'm not going to do the full bios because I don't think that I'm going to do them justice. I am going to selfishly tell you about why I thought, when I thought of who I could have an inspirational and wisdom grounded, liberating conversation, also with delight and pleasure, because I've seen them do it. I thought of Teddy Frank and Ruby Mendenhall, who I've had the project, I come to know them through Thomas Hubel's work around collective healing and I had the privilege of being on a project with them where we were trying to imagine what collective healing would look like more broadly and deeply in communities, especially communities of color or low wealth communities. And that each meeting, I would leave inspired with notes and I would leave with wisdom and hope. And that work was happening in the midst of COVID and post COVID. And so I needed those doses of liberation and possibility. And anybody who's met Ruby, Dr. Mendenhall, knows that she is a dreamer, a visionary, a hope inspirer, right? She is a liberator to her core. And she is always asking us to dream bigger and better and to think about what is possible. And Teddy and I come together from a different place. Like she has been, and she doesn't know this, but she has been such a mentor and coach to me, along with other people. She is a consultant, a healer. She too is a visionary, but from a different place. She's a transformative change agent. She is a liberation in this way she embodies liberation theology, not right from this really broad brush. And so I am forever inspired and changed from having to know these two people. And so I hope you leave with a little dose of inspiration. So Ruby and Teddy, they have bigger bios, like way, way, way super impressive bios. So they're in the description when you sign into this program. And I also hope you will continue to check them out. But welcome, and I am so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Karen. I am happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And Teddy, as always, it's nice to see you.
Oh, well,
Right. It's
thank you, Karen and Ruby. Always an extreme pleasure and delight just to be here in conversation, like you said.
okay. So, and I promised you I wouldn't make this like an interview, but it would be more conversational. And if there are questions that come to mind, I'm going to leave room at the end for you to please answer, ask questions, offer your thoughts and feedback. We do hope that this is interactive, but when I invited you both to join into the conversation, Teddy and Ruby, and you heard me say, this is about rooted and rootedness. What came to mind when you heard the invitation? When you think about rooted and being rooted, what comes to mind?
Well, I'll start. So I thought about it in two ways, right? Kind of almost maybe like the roots and the trunk, and thought about the roots and the historical rootedness, and thought about my relatives, my ancestors that have come before me with this fierce level of strength and creativity, and then the personal level, looking for ways that that fierce level of strength and creativity is a part of who I am, right? A part of my making. So all the way from my father, who was a maker, and I just realized this. I was doing another presentation. I was talking about makers, and like my father would make like some of the toys when I was growing up, a swing set, a baby doll, a bike, whatever I asked him for, he would make it. And my mother was a gifted dressmaker. I've talked a lot about how she made this beautiful graduation dress. And even my grandmother was a maker. And I just went back and back. And then I thought of the ways that I produce things from nothing or from my imagination, and just some of the work that I've done with training young people to be community health workers, creating these wellness stores, and even now thinking about what's the next big thing that's needed from me, right? And so that's kind of what I think about, going back through my ancestors and then landing in this moment with what skills, creativity, and what fierce level of strength do I have?
Mm, mm,
Thank you.
yeah, that's beautiful, Ruby, and it's really similar to what struck me when you first mentioned this, Karen, about rooted. And for me, when I hear and feel what does it mean to be rooted, especially in these times of so much polarization and uprootedness and turmoil and chaos, it's like, what does it mean to feel rooted? And I immediately feel the base of my spine and the bottoms of my feet. Like that's the first place I go, is how I walk on the earth. Um, and I love that you brought in, the toys and the things your dad built, Ruby, because it just reminds me of the riddle of the Sphinx, right? There's this riddle that you may have heard that says, what walks on four legs in the morning, two legs at noon,
Yeah.
and three legs in the afternoon or the evening? And it's our life cycle journey. It's the ways that we are, in fact, representatives of Earth. We're made of the same materials, right? The air and the water and the minerals, and we crawl as babies. And if we're blessed with mobility, then we get to walk. Not everybody is, but for those of us who walk on two legs. And then if we're further blessed, which has not always been the case in my family, to grow old, I've lost members of my family at young ages, and many of us have lost people before they reach that life cycle, where I am now as an elder, that I don't walk with a cane, but I do like my walking stick. So that sense of being rooted on the earth. And then, like you, Ruby, the tree and the trunk, I feel the roots through the earth of my ancestors. as an Ashkenazi Jew, my ancestors come from Eastern Europe, Lithuania, Romania, Russia, Austria, and took a while for them to actually land in New York, which is where I'm from. But I live in Colorado, and yeah, I feel that they're with me, especially now, because one thing that keeps me very rooted is we are living through tough times. That's just the reality. Um, and we're here because they lived through tough times, because they survived. And they are literally the earth we walk upon, right? Their bones, their body, their soil. And I have an ancestral altar right here. And I happen to have my grandmother's charm bracelet, which is beautiful. I don't wear it, but I have it there. And I find myself like I rub it. Nana, what do you think? And like I'm in active conversation with them. And you said something else, Ruby, about kind of these times, you know, in your imagination, which you have so beautifully demonstrated. And I feel like another really important part of being rooted is being present. You know, we sometimes fall prey to like this, we sometimes call it rosy retrospection, like, oh, the past was so much better. And we forget sometimes the hard times we've been through, or we glorify it, or this whole idea that, you know, let's go back to when it was good. And okay, well, maybe, yeah, but for whom, you know, for whom was it really that good? And so being rooted in now is for me really important to kind of say, what is the call for me right now at this time when things feel so unstable and so unsteady in the world, and certainly in the Jewish community where I live, and these United States of America where we all live, racialized trauma, gender violence. What is my call right now? And maybe the last thing I'll say is the place where I get tremendous resource, aside from what I just mentioned, is, you know, I take it all the way down the roots into the center of the earth. And that's where, to me, like the liquid magma of the earth is pulsating. And it brings me back to natural rhythms, to life, which is constantly moving and changing. Like we can't stay still. We have to vibrate and oscillate and, you know, just feel the pulsation. And right back to breath. Exactly what Charnay said, right back to, we breathe out carbon dioxide, the plants breathe it in, and they breathe out oxygen, and we breathe it in. So we are here with and for each other, rooted in the earth.
I love it. And so I'm going to ask you to talk about collective care. But before we talk about collective care, I want to, something you said, Teddy, and I want you to both to respond to. This feels, we've had hard times, right? If you look at the history of the earth, it has been a, you know, journey of survival and thriving and pushing through. And, you know, human beings can be not kind to each other. We see that, and we can be loving and kind. And something is happening in conversation and discourse where I hear more people, and maybe it's because of social media, but I'll look for your feedback, describing feeling so much more unsettled and feeling less resourced and feeling more fragile. If that is indeed true, why might this be feel different? It might be, and it might feel different around people feeling disconnected from their center, their groundedness, right? If breath is always with us and our feet and body are always with us, why might this be a time where of real or perceived untetheredness?
Mm.
Teddy, I'll let you start.
No, thanks, Ruby. It's a big question, and I think there's a lot of different ways to answer that. For me, I think that again, I don't know what it's like to live in another time because I live now. And so if I look at hard times, tough times, that's where I think we recognize that as humans, we have lived through many, many crises and we're still here. And so that's kind of the long view. And then if we look at, okay, what about our contemporary world is creating so much untethering, as you say? I think there's a number of influences. One is things have sped up quite a bit. We work more. We work maybe, I don't know about harder, but we're working more and we're more disconnected. And so, we know this, and Ruby, I'm sure you can talk to this from all kinds of angles, but the idea of how have we numbed ourselves? In the past, we might numb out if we get overwhelmed. We might have a little more proximity or connection to family. We might have a little more proximity or connection to nature, to resources, to community, to friends. But we didn't have devices. And I'm not blaming it all on our devices, but I do believe that there has been a whole generation built on being able to numb out through disconnecting and also substituting a kind of human mammalian connection that we all need each other with a sort of a disconnected world. I think people are frightened about AI. We don't know. Are we being replaced? People have lost jobs. There's been a lot of the social safety net that we've relied upon that has been not just taken away, but eviscerated. The polarization has gotten worse. Racism, anti-immigrant sentiment, anti-Semitism. I think in many ways, is it worse than it's ever been? We can certainly point to many other points in history when it was worse. But I do feel that the disconnection from the resource of how can we not take our overwhelm into a place of absence, that for me feels like characteristic of what's happening.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll say for me, I agree with what Teddy is saying about increases in racism and all the other isms. And, I did work on racial microaggressions, right? Where subtle things that people do or say that make you feel like you're not wanted, you don't belong. And it's this barrage of very overt racism and other forms of oppression that comes at a person, and that's your natural response to understand it, first of all, right, in the way that it's meant, which is a threat to you, and then to try to figure out how to cope and how to adapt to it. And even me, like when and I'm one who believes that this country was rooted in those forms of oppression that has never come out of it fully. So this moment isn't new or a surprise. It's just a different version of it. And so it was really hard for me to realize, oh, like we have to fight some battles that we thought we fought and won and it was settled, and that we have to start things over. And so, and Teddy, as you said, not to become totally overwhelmed, not to kind of sink into despair, which was easy to do, to say, okay, right, we still have to resist. We still have to say what is right, what is human to do to and for other people, but also resist. So I think that's where I'm at in this moment of understanding that plans have to be made, people have to be helped in community, but also I get to live my full humanity in terms of having joy, in terms of being happy, in terms of being creative, in terms of being fierce. So I guess that's what I would say, right? There's many causes from social media to policies to other things. And then the other part of that is to not experience who you're meant to be, even during the midst of this, and to transcend it in some ways, which our ancestors have done, as Teddy talked about.
Hmm.
I love it. And what you both have said and Charmaine said, I also wonder if because the earth is more fragile, it is harder to stay rooted because the earth is more vulnerable. Like when you don't, when the soil is contaminated, Ruby, you talk about planting and gardening. I wonder if our bodies and brains and right, the oxygen is and it's clear and pure and just sort of the embodied part of where we are at a moment. And okay, so two more questions, and again, I want to see if there's any. What were you going to say,
Again, can I
Ruby?
add one comment to that?
Uh-huh.
At the College of Medicine at the University of Illinois, where we're getting ready to do some research that looks at One Health, right? So the health of the planet, the health of animals, the health of humans, right? So that it's all connected. And just to your point, and that's really important for us to understand, because you're right, what we ingest, right, will affect us.
Okay, so perfect segue. And again, I'm realizing because we got a slower start, but two questions I want to ask. The first is, and I want to get this one because I was kind of in love with it. We talk a lot about individual resilience and wellness and our relationship to health and rootedness. And Teddy, you mentioned this, but what does collective care look like? I also think that that's a shift in what has made people feel more vulnerable the more disconnected we are. So, what could collective care look like in fortifying us? And where might it make a difference? Or do you have models of where it might be making a difference?
Mm, mm. Yeah, Ruby, I'm going to let you take this one first, if that works for you.
Yeah, so I'll give an example that I talk about a lot too, and this is in one of the events with Thomas when we were meeting, and we would break into, I think it was like tripods, right? And you have a certain amount of time to talk. And this was during, I think, George Floyd murder and other things. And I took my time, and I took more than my time, right? Because I was feeling it. I was in pain, and I just had to get it out. And I didn't realize that I had took all the time, right? And then I was apologizing, and someone in that triad said, don't worry, because as you heal, we heal. And that was so beautiful to me, and I was like, that's right, like it hit me like that's so true. And so I think part of community healing is being together with people, with holding space, and then to really having people feel safe to talk about what hurts and what else is going well and what they may need. So and then I've also saw this in the Community Healing Network, the Association of Black Psychologists. They do the emotional emancipation circles, and we did some, and we have mothers who've lost their children to gun violence. And I saw in that group how they helped each other to heal, and how that space was very important to them. And the last thing I'll say is, in terms of community and healing, it's also intergenerational. I've worked with a lot of young people, and I love working with young people. And my belief is that they can't come behind me, that they need to be alongside me and watch what I'm doing, and me learning from them, because we don't have a lot of time, right? Like things are so intense. But AXO, for instance, is an organization where it provides youth with access to mentors. And it did that for my children, to the point that I saw something in my children that I didn't even know that they had, right? And sometimes I don't even like to tell the story, but I was like, whoa. And so being in community intergenerationally is just critical, and there are different ways that that can happen, in circles and competitions or showcases where young people get resources, and then also in smaller groups. So I'll say that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Beautiful work. Beautiful work. Yeah, I would say that I am deeply rooted in a Jewish tradition that says, Shvirat Kelim, the the world was created and the vessel fractured. And from that, the sparks that came became each of our beautiful individual and unique souls that are part of the whole. And that our work is to repair. That's the tikkun. And we're instructed that there's two elements of tikkun. You have to tikkun on nefesh, which is our soul repair. Like we have to take care of ourselves. And that includes everything from noticing when we get uprooted and when we get ungrounded, and I'm getting tight now, or I don't feel a real sense of belonging, or I feel estranged, or I feel separate. And what happens in me when that happens? Well, I get a little awkward, or I come back, or maybe I think I'm all that, or I think I'm not that at all. And really integrating our own individual trauma in ways that keep us connected to ourselves and relational. So there's a whole set of practices around that. And the second piece is tikkun olam, our repair to the world, our service to the world. Like it's not enough to feel okay. And, we can be joyous and creative and wonderful and connected, and that's beautiful. And if that's really true, yes, there's a impact and a light that transmits. And how does that manifest with each other? And so for me, collective care is what has life brought me? And in my case, one of the things in recent years is, I'm very fortunate to have recovered from breast cancer. And I feel a call to be with women journeying with breast cancer and chronic illness, and to join together to have this collective care, this community care, these intimate circles where we can gather and feel our own individual resilience and shadows, our ancestral heritage. I mean, just to say, breast cancer is the most common form of cancer worldwide. So we also need to look, what does that say for us collectively? Why is that the case? Well, how do we treat women? How do we treat mothers and daughters and each other, sisters? And, certainly men have a beautiful role in that divine masculine. But in this case, it happened to me. And so we've been running a year-long group as sort of a nurturing space as well as an experiment. Like, what can we learn in terms of health and healing together? Both the support elements of that, but also if we look deeper. I have two co-facilitators, the other of whom from Romania, also dealing with breast cancer, and one from South Africa who's a doctor and a spiritual scholar and bringing the rituals of her people. How do we reimagine our spaces and places to reconnect with the beauty of our, like we said in the beginning, our bodies, our lineage, the moment we live in? That's just one example. And there are many. But for me, collective care is to notice how separate we've become. And that's part of the trauma that I spoke about before, and part of what has been the polarization and the ways in which we cling sometimes too much to our sense of safety, and learning how do we have these kinds of conversations, roundtables, listening circles. Charnay spoke about global witnessing. I'm involved also in the Pocket Project and Thomas Hubel's field, and there's beautiful ways, many, many ways to get involved and to say, I thought I was the only one. But now, as Ruby said, I can talk about what really is moving me. I'm passionate, I'm enraged, I'm fearful, and maybe I'm joyous about some things, but I can talk about it and be felt and seen. That's collective care.
So, of course, I could talk to you both for forever. We're going to bring Charnay back to see if there are questions for you. I have thousands of questions, but I thought what you both offered was just really, really beautiful. Are there questions out there? And while you're thinking about, so I'm going to pause because I think, and I also put my glasses on to see if there are questions. And while you're formulating them, if you could each share what's one takeaway that you would hope people would walk away, one bit of hope or inspiration um, that you would hope people would have as a result of this conversation?
Well, maybe I'll jump in quickly as the questions might be coming in, and just to say we need each other. We are mammals, we are humans, we are wired for connection, we are created to be there for each other. Charnay, you spoke so beautifully about that. I loved what you said. And that if we feel alone, there is an old saying that says, carry a slip of paper in your right pocket when you feel disheartened and alone and separate that says, the world was created for me. Rejoice in that and share it with those you love. And if you get a little too full of yourself, take the slip out of the left pocket that said, I am dust and ashes. So keep those two slips and remember we need each other.
Mhm. I love that. I echo what Teddy said about that we really do need each other. And also, I've thought a lot about this, as you can see, right? Like we're in some times that are really challenging, but also I'm really doing everything I can to pull the hope, to pull the imagination, the creativity, the pull, the how do you write this world, right? And so I think what I would say to the audience is that we all have our gifts and skills. I started with talking about my ancestors and how they were amazing makers, and you could argue they made and created and showed themselves in times that were really, really really, really tough. So I think that we all can do that now and that we all have a part of the answer for this greater humanity that we need. So I would just encourage people to show up, right, to transcend some of what's happening. And I'm not saying it's easy to do that, but that within you is a river, is a life force, and to tap into that.
And I definitely echo what was shared. I'll just briefly say, I think just doing the things that give you oxygen. I never forgot when one of my mentors at work told me that before, to just find the work that gives you oxygen in the midst of so much that can feel like it's suffocating you. So to really just echo again, as you're showing up, as you're being able to support yourself and support the community around you, do the things that bring you joy, whether it's like the music, whether it's walking, whether it's just taking space for yourself, but take the space to show up and do it. I'll just really say for me, live music is giving me the utmost being able to surround yourself in the space that just makes you come alive is what I would say. Like there's a lot happening, but we owe it to ourselves, one breath at a time, to make sure we're also doing the things that pour into ourselves too. So I appreciate that question, Karen. Thank you.
Yeah, and can I just say, Shamay, I appreciate that part about music. I love music. I love to dance. And one time my son was like, "Stop dancing, mom. You dance all the time." I'm like, "You are not the boss of me, right? Like I get to dance. And that's what I want to do." So I agree with you with the music and, as Karen said, nature and garden. I mean, there's so many beautiful things. I just wish I had time to really do more of them.
Oh, wow. And I just want to say, I know when we were looking and imagining collective healing practices, the thought that not only dancing, because we know rhythmic and repetitive activities heal, but dancing with others, to go and like go find you a place to go find you a concert outside, and or put on some music and invite the neighbors, because it is though or it was and it has been those kind of practices that have helped us stay well resourced in complex times as a part of our healing journey, our global healing journeys. And I think when we leave our ancestral roots and our cultural roots, we're far more vulnerable